Hello, hello. I'm on my own today. I've just realised you can't see my hands, and so I lift them up really high. So, welcome. I have set up a little office at my house, so I'm now able to record videos, chat to you, and hopefully give you some insights on what's going on, and we can chat about whatever you find interesting. So, this week's conversation was going to be about the police, because I have this whole chapter of my life that none of you are aware of. So, I thought I'd take a little half hour or so and chat you through some of the things I did in the police, answer a few of the questions some of you asked, and just generally have a chit chat. Um, so, where do we start? So, I was 17. I was with my friend at my dad's house, and he'd come round and he said, I just tried to get into the control room to answer 999 calls, and I failed the test to get in. They do like a quiz on the phone. And I was like, I'm going to have a go at that because I love a quiz. So I got on the phone, and this lady from HR asked me some questions. And I can even remember the questions. Where are the two cities in Kent? What are the three motorways that run through Kent? And what is I think it was what name three main A roads in Kent? And I managed to get them right, so I was very happy, and I got invited to the next stage. And I went along, and I was the first person they'd employed that was under 18. But we did the interview, and it went really well. I loved it. Um, I was like a round peg in a round hole, shall we say? And I went along, and this was at Sutton Road, up by the headquarters. There's a big building there called the FCC, and this must have been about 2002, maybe something like that. I went along there, and they'd only just moved from, instead of having little control rooms out in all the villages that covered little patches, they brought it all in and made it centralised, and they called it the Force Communication Centre. And I was one of the first people they employed in the group there that was an external rather than people who'd come from the other control rooms. I It was a baptism of fire. Before that, I'd worked for the Kent Messenger, and I'd worked in pubs and bars and everything. I started quite young working from about 13. Um, and then I went along to this thing. So I started the training, really enjoyed it, learned how to use the computers, started to answer the phone calls. And you know how it is when you're a young man, you're kind of, yeah, how can I describe it? Full of yourself. So everything was easy. It was people ringing up, I'm being harassed, I've got these problems, and you're like, yeah, tell your mate this, tell your mate that. And it really was water off a duck's back. Because I couldn't really relate, if I'm honest. I hadn't been to the domestics, I hadn't been to the situations. Um, but as I say, round peg, round hole. Flew through the 999 calls. Then I did they call them public calls, and that's all the griefy sort of long, protracted neighbour disputes and all of that kind of thing. Then from there, I went to be an assistant to the radios, which is the police radios. I went to do a backup position. Then I was the backup radio operator, which means you cover when the other one goes for a tea break, or you do if someone calls in asking for having a vehicle check. Then you would be the one who does the PNC, Police National Computer Check, and gives the information about the driver, all of that kind of thing. Then I became a radio operator. The radio operator is the one who runs the area, and then you start on doing the quiet areas like Canterbury, where else is there? Sittingbourne, that kind of area. And then as you get better, you move to the backup on Medway, and then eventually you run Medway, and then some people go on to be team leaders, although team leaders aren't always the best radio operators. So I ended up very quickly going on to Medway. It was a high pressure, high environment. You needed to be really fast energy, and it suited my character perfectly. So I was away, I was answering all these calls, doing all the bits and bobs. And it was a much simpler way then, because it was before we recorded every phone call that came in, and people used to ring up and they'd swear at you, and you just put the phone down and say, we're not here to be mugged off. You want something from us, you ask nicely. And neighbour disputes and things, we would just say, look, you've got to sort it out yourselves, you've got to live together, we're not going to get involved. And it all kind of changed over the years until, as you see, we're very, very soft now, and it's gone kind of the other way. Um, so I spent 3 years doing that. Then a new role come in that was called the ICV, which was the Incident Command Vehicle. And they already had like silver control and gold control. And basically what that is, say for example, a lady with dementia goes missing from a care home. She's been missing for 3 hours. She was last seen in her gym jams, you know, walking along a main road, and that was it. No one's seen her since. That would very quickly escalate into a quite a serious incident, because if you've got dementia, you're in your pajamas, the weather's turning, you don't know where you're going, there's an awful lot of risk, and you would become a vulnerable person. And that would involve setting up a cordon area, searches, resources, maybe a helicopter, and all of that. Well, that can get really, really busy. And so if I was in the control room on the radios, then I would be in the situation where I'm still trying to deal with all the day job as well as this major incident that's coming in. So in those circumstances, we would run, we'd get into a police van, and we would drive down to the scene, and then I would set up, or me or someone like me would set up what they call silver control. And that is where you would basically take control of the incident, give all the information to the inspectors and the supervisors, and basically you're their dog's body and their eyes and ears, and you collate it all and they make the big decisions. And then we communicate the decisions out. So that gave me a bit of a taste, and I was like, oh, actually, I'd quite like to go out. You know, I'm hearing them doing all this stuff. Maybe I'd like to do being a policeman as well. So I did it. I applied, and it took 2.5 years of waiting. It was one of the longest waits they'd had forever, which is kind of how it goes for me generally. So I spent 2.5 years. In that time I become a tutor. So I used to train new staff on how to take calls and how to sort of diffuse situations and strategy and things like that. And I did a lot of training. And then when I left, I was one of the only people they've ever given a honorary payment to. So when I left, they gave me a £2,000. I think it was a 2,000, maybe it was 1,000. I can't remember. It's either 1,000 or £2,000 as a little bonus, just to say thank you for how much you've done over the last few years. You know, you've worked more than we deserve, and they actually gave me an extra £1,000, which I was very proud of. So then I left, and then we moved to chapter 2. So chapter 2 is I went down to where did I go? I had to do the selection. So while I was doing, so forget the control room now. In between the control room times, I had to go and do the police selection. So the police selection was hard because I was overweight as well at the time. You had to go and do an assessment centre, they call it, at the headquarters over at Kent Police College. So I went in there, and I was 20. I was 20, so I was still quite young. Went in. You have to do an assessment. You have to interview. You had to interview someone who was aggressive and sort of had the hump with you. You had to answer some questions, like logical questions. Had to do an interview with a supervisor of some description, and they just asked you, why do you want to be a policeman, and the general stuff. And yeah, and that was it. And then you did a fitness test, which you had to get 5.4 on, which I did, but my God, it was touch and go. Yeah, that was it. I was in. And then I waited the 2.5 years it took to get through it all, did the medical, and before you know it, I turned up at Kent Police Headquarters, which is in Maidstone. I'm scared out my pants because suddenly I was going to be a policeman. And I remember I walked in, and there was loads of other people, and I already felt inferior. Half of them had degrees and had, you know, been to university and stuff. And there's me. I'd spent the last, you know, few years in the control room. But before that, I was running around in Spain working in bars. So I felt very, yeah, you know, overwhelmed. And it was a discipline even more than I've been used to. Anyway, went in. We went into this the lecture theatre. They got everyone together, and then we got sent off to a classroom. No, we got taken straight to stores. That was it. Went round and we got our uniform straight away. And I got so I got my loads of stuff. I got the white shirt, the black tie, the epaulets, the badge, and we had to learn how to wear our uniform. So on your epaulette, there's the Invicta horse. You know, it rears. Well, the horse has to poo down your back, so you have to have it so the bum is placed facing backwards. Just a little tip for you. But I've got my big helmet. This is called the Custodian. Got my flat cap. I got my, what did I get? I got my no, I didn't get my handcuffs. I got my kit belt, and I got a load of my stuff and coats, and I couldn't believe it. They gave me like 3 coats, and the coats were like £300 each. I got a big yellow one, my massive motorway jacket. I got a bomber yellow motorway jacket. I got a police fleece. I got black overcoat. I got 2 stab vest covers, a stab vest. I got a load vest. I got a kit belt. I got 4 pairs of trousers, 4 shirts, 2 ties, 2 sets of epaulets, 2 hats, and pocket. Oh, and I think that was it. And that was it. So we went from there. We went from our stores. So I had this big bag of stuff, and you're walking up, and then really, you know, secret, you're desperate to put it on. You can't wait to go home and put your police kit on. But anyway, you got through the rest of the day, and eventually we went home, and that night, obviously, you put your kit on and do a little fashion show. And then the next day, you turn up in uniform, and it was weird, weird. Suddenly, you kept catching reflections of yourself, and you're like, "Ooh, it's a policeman." Yeah, it was a very surreal experience. So the next day, you learned about your pocket notebook. They gave us this book, and they said if it didn't get written down, it didn't happen. And then they go through this acronym for you: no elbows. And you see, it's just ingrained in this coconut, which is, you know, no leaves turn out, no omissions. Elbows is, oh, I can't even, errors crossed out or something. It goes through the whole acronym of that, and yeah, we had to learn all of those, and then we started learning some definitions, so like theft, or criminal damage and things like that. They gave us it was almost like being at school. It was giving us these laws that we had to learn. And again, theft: dishonestly appropriates property belonging to another, intended to permanently deprive another of it. Thief or steal shall be construed accordingly. Criminal damage: a person intentionally or recklessly destroys or damages any such property with intent to destroy or damage any such property shall be guilty of criminal damage. Criminal damage by fire is arson. And it's in there. It's just, you learn these things off by rote. You learn the caution. You don't have to say anything may harm your offence. If you don't mention or question something which you later rely on the court, anything you do say may be given evidence. And then you would have to say the necessity of this address. I can bore forever about it, okay? Suffice to say, you have to learn all of these things so that they're on the tip of your tongue when you need them. And we did those couple of weeks there, and then I got sent to a police station, I think, down in Maidstone, and I did a one shift with them, just one shift being driven around. And we'll come back to that. And then I went off to Canterbury Christchurch. So because this was a short stage in the Kent Police where they decided that police officers teaching other police officers how to be police officers is a really bad idea. What they needed to do is go to university and get lecturers who have never done any policing to teach about the subjects from a more educational way, and that's why they were recruiting more people who had degrees, more higher educated, going through the university system. The idea was that we was to merge with the community because we are the community, and I don't think it was the best idea. I think, in fact, it was a silly idea. But again, I'm not here to criticise the police. I'm here to just give you my experience. So I'm not going to keep going on because this is a long story. Okay, so I did that. You go to and fro then. So you do maybe 3 months of studying with an exam at the end of the studying, which was really hard, you know, like going back to school and learning all of this stuff. And I think my wife was pregnant at the time as well, or my ex-wife was pregnant at the time. So I was trying to juggle all of these things, and I had to drive from Maidstone to Canterbury to the Windcheap. Then you'd get on a bus, get the bus over to the Canterbury, you'd get there and they'd say, sorry, the lecturers just didn't turn up today, or they didn't feel well today. And you'd turn around and have to travel all the way back home. And that was a regular experience. And then you'd go back and then you'd do a little bit of time on the street. So you'd go and do a 2-week stint. And then I also had to go and do 3 weeks in I went and spent 3 weeks in a drug sort of rehabilitation place where they do needle exchange and stuff, Mill House in Mill Street, Maidstone. I spent nearly 3 weeks in Maidstone Christian Care, which was like a homeless shelter place there, which was brilliant. I loved it. I went there and I didn't know what to expect. I was thinking of guys with a stick and, you know, like a bag on the end of it coming in with their little rough, scruffy dog. But it wasn't at all what I expected. Actually, a lot of the people were working. They just can't hold down the job. and they just can't function in life. And a lot of them are mentally ill. A lot of them are drug addicts. A lot of them are, for want of a better word, intellectually disabled, and they fall through the cracks. Some of them are lovable rogues. Some are absolutely the worst people on earth, and that's why they're homeless. So there is a real mixed bag, and that opened my eyes. And I think that was the intention of it, is to get you to meet all sorts of people and realise who am I to judge? And I really don't. I don't judge people, because we all go up, we all go down, we all make mistakes. Um, so I did that, did all of those things, and then I got posted to something they call Opdamocles. Opdamocles is basically was dealing with all the backlog of crime, all the shitty crap crime reports that have been left, and I got posted to Sittingbourne. Oh, so that meant I had to go and deal with Sheppy. Oh, so that was a baptism of fire too, because suddenly I was having to go and deal with Sheppy people. Sheppy people are lovely people. One of my best mate in the world is Pete Ballard, who's Sergeant Pete Ballard, who is fantastic. He's a Sheppy person, but he's not a Sheppy person, as I would say. There are a Sheppy type of people who are a nightmare. They steal each other's stuff, they sleep with each other's partners, they fight, and it's just this group on the island between Halfway and Sheerness. There is always hassle. So I used to have to go out and deal with them nicking sweets from the shops, or doing whatever argument or slap or argument or fight or whatever it was. I would have to go and deal with that. And again, that taught me, sorry, should I say, how to make case files, how to sort of put together a witness statement. And I'd drive around, and it was the first time I was driving a new car. I'd never been in a new car before, and we had all unmarked cars. On the CID, we'd go out and I'd take reports from people, and you'd kind of learn your trade, and you would hope that nothing happened in between driving places, because I hadn't done the roads policing bit yet, or I hadn't done the other stuff yet. So I was really sort of flying by the seat of your pants. I met some really, really good people there, and then I moved from there. I eventually got posted to Tunbridge Police Station, and that was my first post. And I was going to show you a picture. So this is where I want to bring in my friend Fran. Okay, I'm going to tell you about my tutor Fran. She was amazing and equal miles scary. So Fran, I turned up at the police station, and my sergeant was John Betts. And John Betts said to me, "Oh, come in here, you're new today, welcome." And I went into this like dark dungeon, because the police station metal doors are like a ton, they weigh a ton, and you pull it open, and then you go in. The first thing you get is a whack of cannabis, right? Smacks you in the face. Any police station you go in, if you go into the back of rooms, it stinks of cannabis. So you go in there, you get this smack of cannabis, and then on the left, you've got the property store, and that's where all the drugs, all the evidence gets put. You keep walking down, and then eventually you had the sergeant's office on the left, and then you had the briefing room in the front. And I just walked in, and I just wanted to go home. I was so scared. Like, these were like big roughy tufty cops, and I was soft, and I'd become from training school, and I balled my boots, and they were all shiny, and I was gleaming like new. And I walked into the control room, and I'll never forget it, because there was Fran sat there, and Fran was a very tall woman, about 6 foot. She had a bob, lots of makeup, and was as tough as old boots. I am not lying. She was the toughest copper I've ever met in my life. And she walked straight up to me and stood on both of my boots and ruined the polish. She said, "Welcome to section." She said, "You'll never look anything other than a bag of shit from now on." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then John paired me up with her. And and Fran took me out, and Fran taught me the ropes. And she was the toughest cop ever. I saw her once. We went to a kebab shop, and we was going to get our kebab, right? And I was going, "Fran, what would you like?" And she goes, "Oh, I'll have a doner or something." And then anyway, this teenager goes over there, "Oh, you fat pig," or something like that. And no word of a lie, okay? She grabbed him with one hand, right? He was a scrawny kid, and lifted him off of the floor and against the wall like that, in one move. And she said, "Either apologise now or you're nicked." And he goes, sorry, miss. And she put him down. Now have a look at Fran. I'm going to show you, hang on, I'm going to share the screen and show you a picture of Fran. Now you tell me whether you would mess with Fran. Hang on a second. Oh God, why can't I find it? More, share, there we go. You're going to like this because this is, hang on. This will crack you up. Oh, well, I've got another picture on there as well. So let's do this one. So that's the first one I want to show you. That's me crouching. Can you see that? That's me crouching down, fresh-faced, and that's my eldest, Katie. And we was at Burham ploughing match there. And basically I was a community officer at that point, and all the people were coming up, and we was talking about marking equipment and all that kind of stuff. And my daughters came up, or the other one wasn't alive at that point, but Katie come up, and that's my custodian she's wearing. But anyway, I digress. Going back to Fran, are you ready for this? This is Fran now, okay? So after she left the police, there was a bit of a hoo-ha and she left the police for whatever reason. She went off and become a champion bodybuilder, can you believe? And yeah, she was fun, a little bit crazy. She taught me a lot, and I'm very grateful to Fran for being the person she was. But my God, we went through some crazy stuff. She made us go undercover in Tunbridge Town Centre, and insisted I held her hand while we walked around the town because it looked more genuine. I said, do you really think it looks genuine that I am 5'7" and you are 6 foot tall and taking me for a walk? I said, I feel like a little boy. And she's going, shut up, little boy, you do as you're told. So anyway, that was Fran, and she was amazing. So yeah, there's the article here of her. See, that's the art. I found the newspaper article. Overweight now, a bodybuilding champion in the making. So how about that? So that was Fran. Bear me a second. I'm just going to stop the share. Come back. There I am. Yeah. So I went from there to Tunbridge. Fran took me around, taught me some jobs. We had. I can remember so many that one time we had to go and reclaim a hamster because someone had stolen a hamster. We discovered that there was a gang in Tunbridge called the Tunbridge Street Elite, and we found out about it and bust that open. I know it sounds like more exciting than it was. At that time as well, that's another interesting fact, at that time when I first started at Tunbridge, that very first week, I got sent over to do scene preservation in Maidstone of the cages, the big metal cages that the cash was on from the big Tunbridge robbery, because that had only happened a few weeks before, and they were finding all the stuff from the robberies all over the place, because it was all based in Wateringbury Garage there and all around. And yeah, there was loads of follow-up, and we were doing warrants left, right and centre for that. So yeah, I'm just looking through my notes. So what was I going to talk to you about? Yeah, I'll show you a couple of my. So the problem I had with the police is because I was so self-conscious and didn't like the way I looked, I never took photos. I tried to avoid photos. There weren't smartphones and camera phones anyway till the sort of latter stage of my career. At the start, there wasn't anything like that. We used to take round a digital camera. And I remember when I was being shooted, I got a book thrown at me that was it. You got in the car. And I remember his name was Sean Quinn, who ironically nearly got murdered recently. He was the cop who got stabbed in the head about 10, 20 times in Maidstone. Well, Sean Quinn, he got in the car and he goes, listen, boy, I don't want you to do anything. You don't say anything, don't do anything, nothing. He said, you've got 2 jobs to do. He said, read the fucking map and push the green button if the phone rings. That's it. Do nothing else. And I was like, okay then. So he goes, then you get a radio call, flash call, flash call, flash call. Can you please attend this? And the book, he just chucked the map book at me and went, what are you waiting for? Where are we going? So I'm opening this book up like this and I'm going, I don't know. And he's going, right. And he's driving at like 90 miles an hour up the Lewes Road. Up we're going. I'm trying to flick through these pages, trying to look. And oh my God, thank God for sat-navs and tom-toms. These coppers don't know they have it. And then after you've done all of that, you come back to the station. You have to take all of the details, all of the crime report, do all the work. You get straight back to the station and it's right, make the tea. And you're like, oh. I'd go up and I'd have to get a tea tray and put 20 cups on the tea tray, fill it with water, and then you'd have the milk and the coffee. If there was no milk, guess who has to go and get the bloody milk? And you bring it in and then they'd have it and then you'd have to take them back and you'd wash them up and you do that. But eventually it's not your turn. Eventually you become the old sweat. Although I was never as mean to them. They were extra mean, I think, back in those days. So, yeah, I can tell you a million stories. I really do have some. So you're going to have to give me a bit of a guidance on that. I'm going to look through some of the questions we had. So we had a question from Jackie Bishop. She said, how much time did you spend on admin versus doing the job? And why don't we see Bobbies on the beat on the wall? So there's two good questions there. So question number one, I would say I probably spent 50% of my time doing police work, 50% of my work time doing absolute waste of time or paperwork. I'll give you an example. So a simple theft, okay, with just literally somebody stealing, I don't know, they got a trolley, they got 300 quid in the trolley, and they go to push it out the shop. Somebody stops it, you get there, you nick them. Yeah, so you think, oh, that's a relatively easy job. In there, it's on CCTV, you got a security guard stood there, stopped them. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. So you normally, if it's under £80 or £100, it's probably changed now, probably £200 or more, I would expect. But you used to give them a PND, a penalty notice for disorder, which is a fine for 80 quid. That wasn't an admission of guilt, it's just a fine. And if you pay it, we forget about it. But because of the amount, £300, that's too much. And they've got a history of theft, so you've got to nick them. So you arrest the person. You arrest the person, the first thing they do is go, I ain't got my methadone. You're like, great. So I feel sick, I feel ill. So you have to take them to custody. You get to custody, you have to search them, you have to bag all of their property, you have to book them in, give the grounds for the arrest, all the details, and then the custody sergeant will say straight to the hospital because we need to make sure that they are not harming, they're not ill because they're saying that they've got something, whatever they're saying they've got wrong with them, or they say they've swallowed a battery, or whatever it is. You're off up the hospital, 6 hours, the custody clock pauses while you're there. You then come back again to the station, then they want a solicitor. So then you have to wait an hour for a solicitor to arrive, then they have a 30-minute consultation. In the meantime, I've had to drive back out to Tesco's, take a statement from them. I've had to seize the CCTV, which has to be put into an evidence bag and done all through continuity, booked into special property. You have to get your statements, and then you go, eventually you get in, you have to interview the person. So you get into the interview, there's about 10-minute spiel at the start for something called PACE compliance, so Police and Criminal Evidence Act compliance. And then you eventually ask them, did you steal the stuff out of the shop? No, that's not me. You're like, what do you mean it's not me? So we've got this, watch this video, that's you. No, it's not, looks like me, but it's not me. So then you have to go to identity parades. So then you have to bail them, book identity parades over in Rainham at the identity parade suite there. Then 6 weeks later, they do like the video thing. You send the witness comes back and says, yeah, it's that person there. You do all of that stuff, and that's just one case. And then it eventually comes back, and once you've got all the information, you take it to the CPS, you fax it all over to them or email it all over to them, and then they come back and say, not in the public interest, no further action, or they say charge. You then have to get the person back in. You then spend time booking them back into custody, doing all the stuff, charging them, and then you have to go to court, and then you have to go to the court case, and you can see that one little theft of £300 took me 20 hours being paid, what, back then about £15-16 an hour. So you can see how the money adds up, and you think, this is crazy, okay? And towards the end, it got crazier and crazier, and yeah, it was hard to justify what we was doing. But that gives you an idea, okay? Most of the time the police are tied up is doing stuff that isn't their actual jobs. So it will be a mental health patient, somebody who thinks they're Jesus, who's found at a train station. They get taken, they have to be sectioned, so section 136, found in a public place with an obvious mental problem, risk themselves and others. Then at that point, what you would do is you would say, I'm detaining you for your own safety and taking you to a designated place of safety, which, if you're in Maidstone, for example, is Priority House next to Maidstone Hospital. You get there, they've got no one available. So you have to sit in their waiting room. You can't put the person, you can't leave them because they might kill themselves. You can't take them to custody because the sergeant won't have them because they might kill themselves. You can't let them wander around because if they kill themselves, you're going to lose your job. So you're babysitting until eventually a social worker or someone else comes out, maybe 3-4 hours later. They get a breather, a breathalyzer for alcohol, stick it in their mouth. They're drunk. We're not taking them, and things like that. And that will be a whole shift spent dealing with that rather than dealing with crime. And that's kind of how it goes, really. You're dealing with that, a tree down in the road. The council can't get anyone out to it, so the police have to babysit it. Anything that falls through the gaps, the police have to deal with, and it's become this sprawling thing where they do everything half-assed because they can do nothing properly. That's the truth. Is they're spread too thin doing things that aren't really their roles. You know. Anyway, let's move on. Richard, how annoying is it that TV programmes depict police officers doing a very difficult job portrayed as rude and unpleasant? Some coppers are. Like anything, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I think in Kent Police there's like 2,500, 3,000 police officers, maybe more, probably more than that now. In the Met, I think they've got about 10, 20,000, something like that. So if you add them up all across the country, you're talking about, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So it's difficult to say any person in themselves is nice or nasty. I have met some of the best people I know were police officers. Hopefully you all know me, or a lot of you know me and don't think I'm a horrible person. Well, there's a lot of people just like me in the police. But there are some really horrible people too. I was bullied when I first started in the police. I had a tutor, I won't say his name, but he was awful to me. I nearly left the job for that. I was overweight and I had blisters. So we had to go and walk the foot patrol round the town centre. And I'd done no walking, I was a chav. Who'd gone from, living at home, sort of living here, there and everywhere. I moved in, I had my own house at 17, so I was living by myself, or I was living with a mate who shared with me. And then I'd suddenly been thrust into this world and yeah, I wasn't prepared for it at all. And then this guy said, right, come on, you've got a foot patrol now. So he marched me all around the town. And bear in mind, he does it every day, day in, day out. So his legs are strong. It's like me now as a runner, taking someone out and running them 5K and then making them do it every day for 2 weeks. Well, that's what he did to me. And we'd walk and I ended up with, you get chub rub where your legs rub together. Well, I had blisters so bad that they were like about this big. And I had to, when I got home, I had to burst the blisters, lay in a bath of Dettol, burst the blisters, try and get them to go down enough. Then I'd get up in the morning, try and put talcum powder on, enough to go. And then I'd walk through the day and I'd be trying to keep my legs apart as best as I could because I had this like infected legs that was so painful. And he would not slow down. He would not do anything other than that. And then we'd go into just awful, just an awful person. But you know what? Got past him and he'll get his. You can't let people like that get you down. But it was tough, and people find people when they're vulnerable. I was a vulnerable young man. I was starting out, and where there's somebody who's vulnerable and an easy target, there's always people who prey on them. But you have to stay strong. You have to stick with your morals, okay? And I did report him, I have to say. Another girl went to one of our tutors and said that she felt very, very uncomfortable with the way he treated her. And they asked me if I'd had anything, and I stood up and was counted, and I said, and then I crapped my pants because I was like, oh no, what if this gets out and everyone thinks I'm a grass and I'm going to get... And that's how it is with these things. That's how they prey on the vulnerable, because you think, oh, I'm going to be rejected by the group if I don't, cover this up or just say, nah, he's a good old boy, really. Because he wasn't a good old boy. He was an arsehole. And sometimes they've got to be called out. Moving on. Sorry, difficult job portrayed as rude and unpleasant. Yeah, it's water off a duck's back, really. I used to have people say to me, I hope your children die of cancer and I hope your mother's eyes rot out and that. But they don't hate me, they hate the uniform. They hate the authority figure and they hate what it represents. They don't know me. They don't know who the real me is. They just know what I represent. And at that time, I represent the person stopping them doing what they want to do. You police only meet people on the worst day of their life. Generally, you're either a victim or a criminal. Either way, why do you want to see a policeman? The nice encounters are maybe in Tesco's now and again, but other than that, the reason you see the police is because there's something going on. That's what I say with, and that's how the police was started. No, sorry, I won't. I won't come back to. I'll come back to that because I want to tell you at the end what my thoughts are on the police. What's the grossest thing you've ever encountered? Well, I've seen a lot of gross stuff. Too much. Most of it I can't tell you, to do with bodies and things. So let me think of a gross thing that isn't too horrific. What's something gross that's not too horrific? All right, I'll tell you this one. So I got sent to a call over in Leybourne. No, was it Leybourne or Larkfield? Leybourne it was. Can't say any names or specifics, but I get a call. There's a man at the house. He's mentally ill. There's something wrong. He's smashing the house up. He's throwing gloss paint everywhere, and he is possibly naked. So I'm like, oh God. So I'm single crewed, get in the car, race down there, and I get there, and there's my sergeant, Jim Farley, comes along a little bit later, and then another, I think it's Pete, turned up a little bit after that. So anyway, get there, and the person says to me, he hasn't only got paint, he's got poo, and he's rubbed it all over himself, head to foot. He's covered in white gloss paint, and he's running around. So I'm like, oh my God. So I put a pair of these little latex gloves on, and I'm like, here we go. So I go into this house, and this guy was like a wild animal. Whatever was going on, whether it was drugs or schizophrenia or something, but he was like swinging from the chandeliers. So I've grabbed him and sort of holding him down, and I'm getting this poo all over me. So I'm walking him out like this. I drag him out of the house, put him out on the front garden, and Jim goes, I don't want to touch him. And I'm going, I know, nor do I. So we cuff him up and get him, and then we're trying to work out what to do. And eventually we get a big sheet and out the ambulance and just wrap him up in these sheets and bundle him in a van and get him up to the hospital. And then my radio goes, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you, there's a warning on the address. He's got MRSA. And I was like, great. And you see me, I'm head to foot in this guy's crap. And I've just been told he's got MRSA. So I then go, have you got anywhere I can go and wash? And I said, the ambulance have got sluice washes and stuff. And they went, no, we haven't got anything like that. Got the jet wash. So we go to the jet wash at the police station up the road. I'm stood there in the middle of the jet wash, and they're going, washing me over, getting all this crap off of me. So, yes, that was a pretty gross day, Sarah, I can tell you. Okay, there's a lot of poo during the police, and as I say, I don't want to talk for too long today because we're on 40 minutes already. But one of the jobs you have to do as a police officer as well is if the person swallows drugs, well, you have to fish through the poo. Yes, you do. So they have a special toilet that you have in custody. You wheel it out and you sit them on the toilet, and when they go, you then you sort of shut it, flush it, and it's like a colander, and it washes everything out, and anything that's in there you have to get out, and yeah, it's gross. So there's a lot of things that you wish you didn't know. Where are we? What do you think could improve current policing? I think there's a lot of things that would improve current policing, but ironically, to improve policing, you need to go back to its basic principles. So the police were created by Robert Peel. Okay, there was mainly used to be magistrates, and people would bring private prosecutions and things for that. So it meant that only the rich had access to legal retribution, and often it was very much skewed towards the public, the poor being the tough luck out of luck. What happened coming forward is Robert Peel invented the police, the Peelers, as they were called. And they were basically a local person. The principle was that the police are the public and the public are the police. And you and I have no difference in power at all. It's just that I'm fortunate enough to be able to attend to the matters that concern us both all of the time, whereas you have other commitments. But we are equals, and I'm doing it for you, yeah, with your consent. That is what the police is about, okay? It's about saying, I trust you, Steve, and people like you, Steve, keep my kids safe for me. I've got to go to work and be a bank manager. I've got to go and do that. You protect my family and kids, and I'll pay taxes to make sure that you're employed. And that's the way it worked. It was a reciprocal. And those people, some people were specials, and they'd work for free. Yeah, they're police officers because they had the power anyway. You have the power of arrest. You have the power to detain people, and you have the power to prevent crime. It's just we've been convinced not to. We've been convinced to shut our mouths and not be object to saying things when we say crime. And we should stand up for it. We should report graffiti. We should report antisocial behaviour, no matter how big or small it is. We should challenge these things, because the fact that they're not is why they go uncared for, and eventually they go unreported. And it looks like it's got better, but it hasn't. Just people stop reporting it because they don't consider it a crime. If you never have a police officer come out to something, how long before you decide it's not really a crime? And that's where the police has gone wrong. The police has gone wrong because it is no longer it's no longer focused on its core principles. And the core principles is what is in the best interest of the public. How can we maintain the King's peace? How can we maintain the King's peace? How can we allow people to have the maximum amount of freedom, okay, without their freedom interfering with the expression of somebody else's freedom, okay? And the police got political. The College of Policing was invented, and it was the worst decision, in my opinion, that they ever did. Okay, because what it did is it broke up something, thinking, oh, okay, they're this bad old boys club and it's terrible and everything else. So it brought in this outside instinct to for education and things, without knowing the nuances involved in dealing with difficult people. And the problem is, a lot of the situations, a lot of the ways the system is geared up, it's based on the fact that people comply. And actually they don't. They don't do as they're told, and some people, even if you give them everything, like people, homeless people. I remember picking up a guy, right? I went, what are you doing? He said, I'm sleeping rough tonight. I said, no, you're not. I said, I'll get you somewhere to sleep tonight. And I got him into the car, into my patrol car, rung around every place I could found him a hostel, which was over in Maidstone, drove him there myself, gave him £20 of my own money, and I said, right, they've said you've got a bed here tonight. I said, in the morning, if you go to this place, which was just across the road, they've said that they will sort you out a bed for the next couple of weeks and help you get back on your feet. This is a chance for a fresh start. You can do this. The next day, I nicked him for being drunk and disorderly up in Westmoreland High Street. And that's when you think, he is unable at that point in his life to have normality. His life has fallen apart to such a point that he can't function in society. And short of locking him up, there's not much you can do. So I used to just drop him off food now and again and make sure he didn't get too cold. But that is the problem with policing, and it's that personal touch, knowing the people, knowing what they need rather than telling them what to do, it is the change. I don't know if that's of any use to you at all. But what can improve current policing? Politics needs to stay out of it. Politics and policing do not mix. Police should serve without fear or favour. I was going back to Robert Peel. We invented the police. He said that this is what we're going to do. The police patrol without fear or favour. Okay, we never used to do covert stuff in the police. That cloak and dagger stuff wasn't really what the police was about. Why do you think they wear a giant hat on a 6 foot tall plus bloke? The point was that you stood out like stood out of the crowd, not creeping along trying to grab people. You stood out, you were loud, proud, and you were a presence. And that presence has been forgotten. That the fear of crime is the biggest problem with crime, okay? The fear of crime convinces old ladies that they shouldn't leave their house after 6 p.m. because it's dark and something bad, they'll get robbed, they'll get this. But the statistics don't say that. The statistics say that you're probably 16 to 24-year-old male is most likely to be a victim of a violent crime. And they don't care. They're out with their mates. They wouldn't even think twice about going out. But it's the perceived fear of crime which will make that old lady go to the parish council meeting, demand that the police do more to patrol the old ladies' homes and the old people's homes, and help them to feel safe, than actually deal with the criminals who are assaulting the boys. And that is a PR problem, and that is convenient for the police. So just, take everything you hear with a pinch of salt. Again, these are just my opinions and my thoughts, and I'm rambling away to myself. So, I'm not being challenged on them. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay. What have I got here? So Claire said, bet you were fantastic. You gave great advice and was caring regarding an incident last week with a little girl. Oh, that's very sweet. As I say, that was the background of me being a missing person. I was the go-to guy for missing persons. When I went on to section, which is the policing side, so that was 909 calls, driving the cars fast, doing warrants. I was a taser officer, so I had to go and do taser training. If you want to know more about that, I'll tell you about the taser training if you want, and what you do with that. And then I did my minibus license. I did my critical stripes, they call it. That's 3 weeks of training to be a sergeant. I was then a temporary sergeant for months and months and months, covered for about 3 years on and off, right up until the time I left the police. And I'm going to cover why I left the police in another video another time, I think. So that's how I know what to do with that, with a situation like that. Do we have enough police locally, nationally? Absolutely not. We do not. But you could have 1 million police. They would still not be enough, because any police they get, they allocate to busy work rather than what's required. The point is the police have got to redefine their brief and decide what it is they do. Okay, is their job to pursue crime? If it is to pursue crime, then they should come away from dealing with non-crime incidents. They should come away from things that are not central to what the police are required to do. They're not social workers. They're not trained to be social workers. They're not able, or they haven't had the training to go and deal with violent children or whatever. Yet the police will be piled in as the first option every time, because they're the only ones who are trained to use reasonable force. So you're in this situation where, because violence is such there is no violent commodity amongst any of the agencies like social work and that, they can restrain a little bit. The only people that can drag you kicking and screaming are the police, and therefore you end up going to everything, because everything's kicking and screaming these days. So I would say that I used to go out on patrol, and I'd be on my own, and I would cover Burren, Walden, Eccles, Aylesford, some of Bluebell Hill Village, all the way up to Snodland, all by myself, just me, one copper. And I would have a little noddy Fabia car, and I've arrested a guy. I had a fight with a guy up at that was in Burren. Went into this house, and he just went for me straight away. So I grabbed him, threw him on the floor, and he'd been taking cocaine all day. So he had the strength he was as strong as an ox. And I was thinking, as if this guy gets away from me, he's really going to hurt me, And you're like, I'm on my own. So I called for help. I said, I need support. And they're 40 minutes. I had to wait 40 minutes for someone to come and help me. So I had my knee on his back. I'm pinning him down. He's biting. He's spitting at me. Even his mum's punching him in his legs to try and stop him from kicking at us all. And that was exhausting. 40 minutes of holding someone down, I can tell you, is really hard. Do we have enough police? So I don't think we do, but if we keep adding police, that's not going to solve the problem either. What we need to do is redefine the brief of what you want your police service to do. What do you consent to them doing? What do you not want them doing? And they should keep to our brief, because they work for us. Okay, and ultimately they are their priority. They have discretion. They don't have to arrest people if they don't want to. Okay, they can say, no, I don't, I have my discretion, but they have to stand up and be counted for that. And more and more and more, that's coming away, and it's becoming more of a give a ticket, do this, but like a traffic warden, go to it, do a crime, give them a ticket, come away, rather than someone with a brain turning up. And that's not saying that traffic wardens don't have brains, but they just have to put the numbers in a machine and push ticket. A police officer used to go in, listen to the circumstances, and make a judgment call based on the facts, which is based on fact, not feelings, and not what the politics of the day are. It's what feels right, what's the right thing to do. But the problem is, if you have police officers who don't know the difference between right and wrong, or don't have any life experience, how are they supposed to make an informed decision based on facts? It's a lot harder. So I think that's one of the things I would recommend. What else have we got on here? I'll do two more and then I'm going to stop because it's quite hard on my own. I'm missing Harry, you know. Um, what would motivate and encourage someone most to join the police or make a career of it? So when you join the police, you'll sit in this big room, like I remember I told you at training school, and they'll go around the room and they'll go, can you tell us, we want you to know, tell us what your name is and why did you join the police? Can you guess? And they go, hello, my name's Sarah. I joined because I want to make a difference. Next one. I'm Sarah, I'm Steve, and I want to, I want to do something special and help people. And the next person. Nobody says, I want to join the police to drive fast cars and smash things and, do cool stuff. Yeah. That's a lot of people. A lot of people think that'd be cool. I'd quite like to do that. That looks exciting. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why is there something wrong with going for a career that's exciting and does something a bit different? The things I did, you will never do. I was at Aylesford and there was a guy walking along the quarry there and fell to the bottom of the quarry, broke his leg. We couldn't get down to him. So I went up and I cut all the bolts, opened up all these fences, and then the air ambulance came along, landed in the field next to me. We got everything out. He went and picked the guy up out the quarry, come back, and then he let me sit in the cockpit and have a little look around and show me all the instruments. And I mean, that is something other people don't get to do. And so it's an exciting thing, and there is rough with smooth. Okay, it is exciting, it's good, but yeah, it's hard, but you tell me a job that doesn't have good days and bad days. So yeah, I would say you've got to be the right personality for it. You've got to be able to just keep going even when things are tough. Be great to get an insight from you. Don't expect all to be answered. Pick a favourite. Oh, here we go. Oh, I've done a screenshot and I can't read them. Oh no. Police service or police force? They changed it when I just started from police, and I don't like it. I think force is better. I think that personally, I think that you should have respect for police, and there should be an element. They shouldn't be terrified, but you should think, oh God, your stomach should drop if a police officer walks around the corner and you're up to no good. Not think, whoa, this is going to be fun, and then proceed to film and challenge and shout at and be abusive to. I think we need to go back to having, police officers that can be respected, and that is hard. I'm not saying that, it's an easy thing, because a lot of police officers have lost that respect. With Sarah Everard, that guy, we got to hold our hands up and say he was one of us, and therefore, why didn't we know? Why didn't he get called out? And why did we come down so hard on the video afterwards? These things happen. We should say, God, he was amongst us. People, God forbid, find out that one of their uncles did something, looked at kiddie videos or something like that. Is that a reflection on you? No, of course it's not. And that's it. But if you don't say anything or don't call it out and still keep inviting him around for barbecues and pretend nothing happened, then you are complicit in it, I think. And therefore the police do need to really and resoundingly hound these people out of their jobs and, make an example of them, because they are giving the police a bad name. And, there does need to be a day of reckoning with this stuff. It can't keep happening. As it's part of the job to follow the evidence. Kelly Leon, she said, as it's part of the job to follow the evidence, how much of this is whatever's very popular issues on a given topic? As you know, I'm a qualified lawyer and currently employed by the coroner's officer. I'm used to influence necessary. I don't want to get too political or messy, not on our first date. But what I would say is, everything's a story. Okay, the criminal is making a story up and they're trying to get out of it. The victim is making sure that they come across as a victim in their statement. Yeah, so they are really aggrieved. The criminal is really offended and it wasn't them at all. And the police officer really doesn't care. They're tired. They've been from call to call to call, listened to a load of old stuff, and they don't care. So what they're thinking is how can I get this resolved and sorted as fast as possible so I can get home on time? And that is the truth. If you have officers that run from call to call to call to call to call, they take the easy option. They take the easy way out. And the more tired you are and the more overworked you are, the more easy it is to turn a blind eye to things. And that doesn't mean that they're going out the way to do bad stuff. It just means if they find drugs on you, they just throw them down the drain and don't arrest the person. They just go, don't do that again. Okay, that's the sort of thing you have that happens with it. Yes, there is collaboration at times, but it is allowed in certain circumstances. Officers are allowed to discuss the events that occurred, but ideally not. But you can remind yourselves a little bit of it. But invariably, you all go to the call yourselves and you all go together, and it's a fast-paced, crazy environment. You turn up, someone's trying to stab you, and you're trying to remember what the person's description was, how they looked and everything. So there's a lot of pressure, and I've been to court quite a lot of times. And when you go to court, you stand there and they say, why did you do this? I put it to you, you did it because of, you know, XYZ, and you're a liar and this. And you really need to be sure about what you did, because they tear you apart. They tear apart your character. They'll make out you're a liar, that you've done everything wrong. And by the time you come out of the dock, you don't know whether you did do something right or wrong or not. And you speak to the solicitor and they go, you did all right. And you go, oh, thank God for that. But you always have this underlying fear of, God, if I put a foot wrong, I'm going to get sacked. And I spent the whole time feeling like I was going to be sacked, to be fair. Right, politics. What else have we got? I think I'm going to wrap up. I'm just going to do a couple of little things to finish off with. So here's a nice picture. Let me go back to share screen. I'm going to show you two more little things, and then I promise I'll shut up, because I don't like to go over the hour. Sorry, I do talk, and there's a lot to tell you. If you can give me some more questions or anything you want to talk about, you know, I can give you more examples. I can give you more gruesome stuff, but I don't want to make anyone feel sick. Why can't I share my screen? Where is... Oh no, it's that button. So I'm just going to show you a picture of some of my old team. As I say, there aren't very many photos, I'm afraid, because of me being self-conscious. But this was a lovely photo of my team. Can you see this? No, you can't. I don't know if you can see this or not. Hang on. Yes, you can. So this is my team here. These guys were new. That was Matt here on at the front, and then to the right, Chloe, Laura, Phil. Don't know who that is. I can't see. And yeah, a load of my friends. And that is me in front of the telly at the back, next to Scottish Dave and Mike. So that was Christmas dinner. So all of us went out and did the patrols on Christmas Day, except from Chloe, who stayed behind, and she cooked us all a Christmas dinner. And we come back and had, in the police you call them refs, refreshments instead of lunch. So we come back and had refs, and we all had a Christmas dinner in carols, and not carols. That'd have been a sight, carols. No, we had a nice lunch together, and we did Secret Santa, and that was very fun. And then also I found one of me. Oh, it's not on there. I have to show you another time. But it was me in the car wash. And here's a silly video of me larking around with Pete and Mike in the car park. This is at Coldharbour Police Station when it snowed. Hang on. Oh, hang on. I can't make it go big. That one. I don't seem to be able to make it go any bigger. So you have to. Hopefully you can see a bit of that. I'll put it in the middle. Right, here we go.
Not bad. Go on, grab
the whole car park had frozen. That's Mike. Yeah, that's me. You ready for this?
And he's off. Never run up.
No, we did have some fun, and we used to we'd do silly things like that. We'd get it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be dead quiet, and you'd have the ice snow all on the hills, and you'd take your shields, the riot shields, out the back of the car, sit down the things, and all sorts of stuff. While everyone's asleep, we was awake and playing. So hopefully that was something interesting to you, and I didn't ramble too much. If you've got any other questions, I am more than happy to talk about this again, or you could narrow me down a bit. I will talk about the politics of policing if it's something you're interested in. I have a lot of opinions and a lot of things that should be done differently. As I say, I was a community officer towards the end, and I spent my time helping to fix and support communities. And Yeah, I can see where they're being let down personally. But that's for another day. Thank you for your time. I hope you got something from it. I can tell you about some of my incidents and things next time, maybe that I've been to. Thanks for your, or actually, I could also answer legal questions. If there's any police questions you want to know the rules, then I've got quite a good brain. I did pass the police sergeant's test with an exceptional result. I got the highest result in Kent. So, bye guys.